The House at Blackwater Hollow. Genre: supernatural horror, psychological thriller tone. Creepy, suspenseful, and ultimately terrifying length. Delivered in multiple parts, starting now with Part 1, approximately 1,000 to 1,200 words. Part 1. The Letter. There was something strange about the way the letter had arrived. It wasn't just that it came in a cream-coloured envelope sealed with a wax stamp. People still use that kind of thing for weddings or fancy parties. But this wasn't an invitation. There was no return address, no postage stamp. Just her name on the front in perfect cursive, Clara Evans. Clara turned the envelope over in her hands twice before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded crisply in thirds, and a line of elegant handwriting in dark ink. You've inherited the Blackwater Hollow property. Come alone. Keys will be waiting. No signature, no details. Just that. Clara had no living relatives, at least none that she knew. Her parents had died in a car crash when she was 10. She'd grown up in foster care, moved from house to house until she aged out of the system at 18. If this was some kind of scam, it was a stupid one. She had nothing worth stealing. Still, she searched online. Blackwater Hollow was real. A tiny, nearly forgotten village 2 hours outside the city, buried in the countryside, surrounded by forests and fog. A place so obscure, it barely had a digital footprint. Just a few blog posts, some mentions on ghost forums. One site called it England's Silent Valley, though Clara lived in the US, and this Blackwater Hollow was in New Hampshire. There were also rumors. A few chilling entries in a forgotten corner of Reddit. Anyone ever hear of the Blackwater House? I spent one night there. Never again. Don't listen to the voices. Don't even look at the mirrors after dark. It knows you're watching it. Clara's stomach twisted. Still, something pulled at her. Curiosity mostly. And a feeling she couldn't name. Like the letter had been meant for her all along. 2 days later, Clara stood at the edge of a forest path, staring up at a rusted iron gate with 2 letters carved into the arch above. BH. The Uber driver who dropped her off had left without a word, spooked by the fog and silence. Clara had to walk the rest of the way through the woods. The trees here were ancient, tall, twisted things that leaned over the narrow trail like they were whispering. At the end of the path was the house. It was massive, old, half covered in vines, windows shuttered, the roof slightly slanted. A Victorian-era beast of dark wood and rotting trim. But the door was clean, freshly painted, and hanging from the handle was a small brass key, just as the letter said. Clara swallowed hard and stepped inside. Part 2 coming next. The House Wakes Up. Would you like me to keep going with the next part right away? It will build more atmosphere, introduce eerie occurrences, and start peeling back the horrifying secrets of Blackwater Hollow. The front door creaked shut behind Clara with a weight that felt final. She flinched at the sound. No wind, no pressure. It had closed on its own. The entry hall was dim, lit only by the grey daylight filtering through dusty windows. A grand staircase loomed ahead, its wooden banister carved with twisting shapes that might have once been floral, but now looked like claws or tentacles frozen in motion. The air inside smelled like time, stale, heavy with mildew, and something metallic. The kind of scent that settles into old wood and never leaves. Clara held her breath and stepped forward. The floorboards groaned under her boots. She walked slowly through the hall, past faded wallpaper, tarnished sconces, and portraits of people she didn't recognize. Thin-lipped, pale-eyed figures staring down at her with expressions that weren't quite human. Too still, too knowing. She found the key again in her coat pocket and squeezed it like it might protect her. In the sitting room, the fireplace had already been lit. Clara froze. She was certain no one had passed her on the path. The house had been locked. The key had been on the door, and yet the fire crackled in the hearth, like it had just been started. She didn't call out. Somehow, that felt wrong. as if acknowledging the presence of someone else would give it power. There was an old armchair by the fire, its fabric frayed and dark with age. Beside it sat a small wooden table with a tea set, blue china, surprisingly clean. 3 cups, all empty, waiting. As she reached out to touch the chair, a sound echoed from above. Footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate. Clara stepped back from the fireplace, pulse hammering in her throat. She stared at the ceiling. The steps were right above her, moving toward the stairs, toward the hall. She turned and darted behind the entryway wall, crouching in the shadows. The footsteps reached the top of the staircase. Stopped. She held her breath. Nothing. A minute passed, then 2. She peeked out. No one was on the stairs. No one in the hall. But one thing had changed. There was now a large mirror hanging at the foot of the stairs. It hadn't been there when she entered. And worse, her reflection wasn't alone. In the mirror, Clara stood beside a figure in black. A tall, faceless silhouette with long arms that ended in something too sharp to be human. She spun around. No one there. She turned back to the mirror. Empty. Only her reflection now. She didn't sleep the first night. She curled up in one of the upstairs bedrooms, small, dry, and far from the fireplace, and listened to the house breathe. That's the only way to describe it. The way the walls creaked like lungs. The soft groaning of the floors. The occasional click of a doorknob turning by itself. Something was awake. And it wasn't just old plumbing. Around 3:17 a.m., she heard whispers. They came from the hall, just beyond her door. Not words, not exactly. More like a chorus of mouths mimicking speech, almost forming language. She pressed her ear to the door. Clara. This time, the whisper was clear, male, deep, right on the other side. She backed away slowly. A long shadow moved beneath the doorframe, pausing there, then gliding away. She stayed frozen on the bed until the pale morning light broke through the cracked window pane. When she finally opened the door, nothing. The hallway was empty, but a new photo had been added to the wall outside her room. This one was different from the portraits downstairs. It was newer, colorized. It was her, standing at the front door. Same clothes, same bag in hand, except in the photo her eyes were completely black. By mid-afternoon, Clara stopped pretending she had control. She explored the house, but it explored her back. Every room she entered felt slightly off, like the walls shifted when she turned away. Furniture rearranged itself behind her. Doors she swore were open would be locked when she looked again. And there were more mirrors now. Small ones, large ones, hanging in places they hadn't been the day before. Some of them showed her face accurately, others didn't. One showed her crying. Another showed her with a rope around her neck. And the largest one in the second-floor hallway showed her bedroom burning, and someone standing inside it watching her sleep. She smashed that one with a candlestick. But the next time she passed it, the glass had repaired itself. And now she was smiling in the reflection. By nightfall, the house began to sing. It wasn't music exactly, just low hums and old melodies carried through the pipes and vents. Sometimes it sounded like a lullaby, other times like funeral music. Clara found herself drawn to the attic. She didn't want to go. Every nerve in her body screamed to stay away. But her feet moved on their own, slow and deliberate, up the narrow stairs behind the upstairs bookshelf. At the top was a wooden trapdoor. No lock, no handle. She pushed it open. The attic was filled with mirrors. Dozens, all shapes and sizes. None of them pointed at each other. And in the center stood a single wooden chair. On the chair sat a small music box, already turning. The tune was familiar, one she remembered from childhood. Her mother used to hum it. Clara stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind her. The music box played on, a haunting, delicate tune that twisted around Clara's memories like smoke. Familiar but warped, as though someone had taken the lullaby from her childhood and stretched it into something sinister. The mirrors around the attic were tall and ancient, their glass tarnished and warped. Some were fogged, others cracked. But none of them reflected her properly. In one, she was younger, no more than 10, wearing a yellow raincoat she hadn't seen in years. In another, she looked older, tired, with black stains around her eyes like she hadn't slept in weeks. In another, she wasn't there at all. She approached the music box slowly. It was made of dark wood and silver inlay, hand-carved, elegant. The lid was open, and a little porcelain ballerina spun endlessly. Her dress was red, not bright red, dark red, like dried blood. Clara reached out. As soon as her finger touched the box, the music stopped. So did the ballerina, frozen mid-turn. Silence pressed down on the attic like a thick fog. Then, from behind her, a whisper. She danced until her bones cracked. Clara spun around. No one there. But in the largest mirror directly across from her, she saw it. A figure, tall, draped in a tattered black shroud. No face, only the faint shimmer of wet eyes. Far too many eyes, glinting beneath the hood. The figure was standing right behind her in the reflection. She whirled again. Nothing. Back to the mirror. Still there. Closer now. She screamed and backed into the music box. It toppled to the ground and shattered. And for a split second, every mirror,